When you look at a world map, there's a thin strip of land where two oceans almost touch. A place so small, most people never think about it. But this narrow passage changed global trade forever. Before this canal existed, ships traveling from New York to California had to sail nearly 13,000 kilometers around South America, through some of the most violent waters on Earth. The journey was dangerous, slow, and deadly. Thousands of sailors never returned, but then humanity attempted something impossible: to cut through a continent. What followed became one of the deadliest engineering projects in human history. More than 25,000 workers died. Entire teams vanished into jungle disease, mountains collapsed, machines were buried alive, and millions of dollars disappeared into disaster. Yet somehow, against all odds, they finished it. Today, nearly 6% of global trade passes through one man-made waterway, a shortcut so important that if it stops working, the entire world feels the impact. This is the story of the Panama Canal, the canal that changed the world forever. At first glance, Panama doesn't look important. It's just a narrow piece of land connecting North and South America. But geographically, this location is one of the most strategic places on Earth. Because here, the Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean come incredibly close together. For centuries, explorers dreamed of connecting them. The idea sounded simple: create a passage between oceans, and ships could avoid sailing around South America. Trade between Europe, Asia, and the Americas would become dramatically faster. But there was a problem. Panama was a nightmare. The jungle was unforgiving. Extreme heat, relentless rain, deadly insects, flooding rivers, mud that swallowed equipment whole, and hidden inside the jungle was death. Back then, nobody understood mosquitoes carried diseases like malaria and yellow fever. Workers would arrive healthy, then suddenly develop fevers. Some began vomiting blood. Others collapsed within days. Entire expeditions disappeared before making real progress. Still, the dream refused to die, because whoever controlled this shortcut could control global trade itself. In the late 1800s, France decided to attempt the impossible: build a canal through Panama. Leading the project was Ferdinand de Lesseps, the famous engineer behind the Suez Canal. At the time, he was considered a genius, the man who connected Europe to Asia. People believed if anyone could build the Panama Canal, it was him. Investors poured enormous amounts of money into the project. Thousands of workers arrived in Panama full of hope. At first, everything looked promising. But Panama was nothing like Egypt. The Suez Canal crossed flat desert. Panama crossed mountains, rivers, and dense rainforest. The environment fought against every step. Heavy rains triggered massive landslides. Excavation sites collapsed overnight. Mud buried expensive machines. Railroads disappeared beneath the earth. And then the diseases arrived. Yellow fever, malaria, entire hospitals overflowed with dying workers. Some people became so terrified they refused to leave their ships after arriving in Panama. Funerals became a daily routine. Cemeteries expanded faster than construction sites. By the 1880s, thousands were dead. And the project was collapsing. Then came financial disaster. The French company ran out of money. Corruption scandals exploded across Europe. Investors lost fortunes. And one of the most ambitious engineering projects in history failed completely. The dream of the canal appeared dead, but the world still needed it. At the beginning of the 20th century, another nation saw opportunity: the United States. America was rapidly becoming a global power. Its industries were growing fast, its navy was expanding, and moving ships between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans was painfully slow. Without a canal, American ships still had to travel around South America. The journey could take months. Then came one of the most influential leaders of the era, Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt believed controlling a canal was essential for America's future. But there was a problem. Panama was still part of Colombia. Negotiations failed. Then suddenly, a revolution began in Panama, and almost immediately, the United States supported Panama's independence. Soon after Panama became independent, America gained control over the canal zone. Construction officially restarted in 1904. This time, failure was not acceptable. The Americans understood something the French never did. Before building the canal, they had to defeat disease. Doctors had finally discovered mosquitoes spread malaria and yellow fever. So the United States launched one of the biggest sanitation campaigns in history. Standing water was drained, Entire neighborhoods were fumigated. Windows received protective screens. Mosquito populations began falling. And for the first time, worker death rates dropped dramatically. Now the real challenge could begin. Building the canal itself. The original French idea had failed because they tried building a sea-level canal. America chose a different solution: locks, gigantic chambers capable of lifting ships upward like elevators. Instead of cutting directly through mountains, ships would be raised above sea level, cross an artificial lake, then lowered again on the other side. It was revolutionary, but constructing it required unimaginable effort. Workers blasted mountains using dynamite. Steam shovels removed millions of tons of earth. Massive machines operated day and night. Landslides constantly destroyed progress. Some excavation zones collapsed repeatedly, forcing workers to dig the same areas again and again. But slowly, the impossible started becoming real. One of the greatest engineering projects in human history was finally taking shape. Then, after years of death, failure, and relentless construction, the moment arrived. August 15th, 1914. The Panama Canal officially opened. Humanity had done the impossible. For the first time in history, ships could travel directly between oceans without sailing around South America. Global trade transformed almost overnight. Journeys that once took months now took weeks. Shipping became faster, cheaper, and more efficient. Oil tankers passed through the canal. Cargo ships carried food, vehicles, and industrial equipment across the planet. Military fleets gained strategic mobility unlike anything before, and the United States suddenly controlled one of the most important trade routes on Earth. A tiny strip of land had become the center of global commerce. As decades passed, the canal became more important than anyone imagined. Thousands of ships traveled through it every year. Some vessels became so massive they barely fit inside the locks. Entire economies depended on this route. Products used by millions of people every single day passed through Panama. Then in 2016, the canal entered a new era. Panama completed a massive expansion project worth billions of dollars. New giant locks were built to handle larger ships called Neo-Panamax vessels. These enormous cargo ships could transport far more containers than older ships. The expansion increased global trade efficiency even further. Because in the modern world, every hour matters. A delay at sea can cost companies millions of dollars, and the Panama Canal saves enormous amounts of time. Without it, global shipping would become dramatically slower and more expensive. But despite all its success, the canal now faces a new danger, one no engineer can fully control: nature itself. The Panama Canal depends on fresh water. Every time a ship moves through the locks, millions of liters of water are used, and recently, that water has started disappearing. Climate change and severe droughts have lowered water levels across Panama. Some years became so dry, canal authorities had to reduce the number of ships allowed to pass. The impact spread across the world. Shipping delays increased, supply chains slowed down, prices rose. Because when this canal struggles, global trade struggles with it. Once again, this narrow strip of land is influencing the entire planet. More than a century after opening, the Panama Canal remains one of humanity's most important creations, not just because of engineering, but because it changed how the world connects. It reshaped economies, military strategy, global trade, and modern transportation itself. Every ship crossing these waters carries more than cargo. It carries the legacy of one of humanity's boldest ideas, a dream so ambitious that thousands gave their lives to make it reality. And even today, the world still depends on it, because sometimes the most powerful places on Earth are the narrowest.